everyone, and welcome into CrushTheStreet.com. I'm Kenneth Emenduri, and I'm joined with the returning guest, Karl Denninger. He's an entrepreneur. His background is in computer science, and he's the author of The Market Ticker. Market-ticker.org is the website, and we're going to hear more about that today. But to discuss the economy and what's going on with the markets now, Karl Denninger, thanks for joining me.
Anytime.
Karl, we got Trump trade wars. Markets seem to be a little unsure, but at the same time, strong. Sentiment is strong. So what do you make of the dynamics at the moment?
Well, I really don't like markets that are both very expensive and where sentiment is very high. That's usually ends up being a very bad combination over the intermediate term. And historically, if you look at what tends to occur to people when they do that, it's not very favorable at all. So we've got a lot of that going on right now. The big issue I think you have is that the essence of the last several years has been leverage expansion driven by what amount to negative interest rates. Right. So I mean, the real rate of interest is the charged rate less whatever the expansion in credit and money supply is, because credit money supply is, invariant, always shows up in price somewhere, right? So if you have negative real rates, then prices are going to rise. The problem is that the Fed and everybody else that's involved in this cannot control where prices rise. So if you can suppress them through all sorts of offshoring games and the kind of shenanigans that we've had with our trade policy over the last 30 years or so, where it tends to show up as an asset prices. And that's simply because it's the most obvious place for it to show up. It's the one that is not linked to those things. And so, that's what we've seen. That doesn't really necessarily belie underlying strength, though, because credit-led expansions drive consumption up to a point. And then there's a problem with that. It's called, there's no sustainability because you're not actually making anything. You're just borrowing money. So
yeah, you mentioned something, sentiment at ultimate highs and markets very expensive. So we're an extreme there, and that would lend itself to something that maybe isn't so expensive where sentiment is very low. And, for me, we've been really looking at precious metals now for a number of years. And we continue to just kind of be beaten down by it. It goes over 1,300 and there's some sort of optimism, and then it pulls back and then it does it again, only to really now need more confirmation to the upside than ever, because we've been tricked so many times by these fake false rallies. So what are your thoughts on this?
I look at commodities as all part of one basket. Which I know that makes me a contrarian to pretty much everybody out there, because people tend to take commodities and separate them into precious metals and then everything else, right? But my view of commodities is that they are all priced on utility value in the end. They all have premium in them, which amounts to speculation, just like a stock has premium in it that amounts to speculation. So I'm not at all surprised that precious metals are not really going anywhere in terms of confirming moves or whatever have you, because the utility value hasn't really changed all that much for any of them, nor is the utility-driven demand. So, when it comes to gold specifically, you have some utility value and some utility demand from electronics manufacturing, for example, connectors and things like this. The rest of the demand is people's belief that it's a store of value, in other words, some form of money. And also the jewelry value, which is relatively constant as well. Of course, that ebbs and flows a little bit with the economy, but not to a large degree. And silver has had a terrible problem over the last 30 or 40 years, because it had a very large component of demand in photographic use, okay, in that it was an essential element in the making of film. Well, we don't do that anymore. We're carrying around cell phone cameras and digital imaging devices, and so the one of the major consumption elements of silver is gone permanently and is never going to come back. So there's a problem there. In the other precious metal areas, palladium, platinum, things like this. Again, the issue is where's the industrial demand for those things? Where's the utility value? So I'm not at all surprised by what we're seeing in the commodity space.
Just talking about changing dynamics and things pressing forward, we had Amazon with the announcement today. You might have seen the news.
Yeah, which one?
Entering the pharmaceutical space, and this actually sent Walgreens and CVS and these other pharmaceutical traditional conventional storefronts collapsing. And, we saw what Amazon has done to Barnes and Nobles and some of these other bookstores that, were brick and mortar. And then all of a sudden now this one announcement just sends a shockwave through the pharmaceutical companies, your traditional pharmacies. And, any thoughts on just like the changing environment and, Amazon and what is going on going forward? I mean, I'll leave that question open-ended just to see, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think Jeff Bezos ought to be in a federal prison cell with a pair of handcuffs for the rest of his life. The gall of this company and the actions that it's undertaken over the years know no boundaries. People say this man is an innovator. He's not. He's a thief. He's a liar and a fraud, and he ought to be in prison. That's my opinion. It's been my opinion for over a decade. This is the company that shortly after it was founded tried spamming my entire customer base. Okay, which was before we had a Can Spam Act and everything else. They got blocked by my ISP. I blocked them and refused to drop it because what they were doing was, it wasn't illegal, but it was, as far as I was concerned, highly unethical to do that. And they tried to claim they didn't do it. Well, they actually spammed me. And at the time, I had never bought a single thing from Amazon, but they spammed my personal email box. So to claim that they didn't do it was rather specious because the guy who took the action was sitting there with mail in his hand. Okay. Now, of course, they've grown up since then to some degree. But and the pharmacy thing, I think, is kind of interesting because what they announced today is essentially entering the prepackaged market for those people that take, half a dozen or a dozen pills a day. This company that they bought is one that took bulk prescriptions, breaks them up into daily packages. So you have one envelope, you tear open, you eat all those pills, right? So you're not taking one out of this can, one out of that can, one out of this can. That's the business they bought today. It's an interesting model. I'm not sure how they make any money at it. Okay, because that's, there's, even if you roboticize it, you are taking limited shelf life drugs, repackaging them for convenience. You've got to charge something for your work, right? And what are you really taking out of there is the person going to the bottle and unscrewing the cap and, pouring the pill into their hand. How much is that worth? I don't know. The more interesting story today was the delivery story, with them essentially saying, well, we want to empower thousands of entrepreneurs to go out and set up delivery businesses, essentially to try to kick FedEx and UPS in the nuts. The problem with this is what they're doing is illegal, okay? It's flat out against the law. You're driving their branded vehicle on their route with them giving you the routing, telling you when to do the work, what work to do, how to do the work, and you're not able to individually negotiate your pay. That's not a contractor. That's an employee. And yet, there again, here, we're going to set up your Amazon delivery business. It's branded Amazon, but by the way, you're an independent contractor. You're not Amazon as an employee. You're a contractor, and presumably you'll get paid by the piece, right, for the delivery. Look, the wage and hour guys, where are they? Okay, there should have been an indictment announced 15 minutes after Amazon's announcement from Jeff Sessions saying, I don't think so, folks. This is going absolutely nowhere. You pull this or else. But, it's not going to happen, just like it hasn't happened with any of the other things. There's been an antitrust problem with this company for a long time. They use Amazon Web Services as a subsidy source for their retail business, which operates at essentially zero operating margin, okay, and has for a decade. AWS has a 30+% operating margin. cross-subsidization of this form is against the law. It's been against the law for 100 years. You don't believe me, go read 15 United States Code Chapter 1. I'm not making this up. That's been on the books since they used it against Standard Oil. Okay, IBM got whacked for this when they tried to link their service contracts, which were very high margin, to their hardware sales, which were low margin. They got kicked in the you-know-what for that, all right, and because they tried to put Amdahl out of business, which was one of their competitors. That didn't go over so well. So, I mean, is it surprising to me that they're doing this? No, because the same sort of scheme was run with all of their distribution centers. The original model that Amazon had, which, by the way, everyone says was innovative. It wasn't. I thought of the same thing when I was running my internet company. We wanted to go into a new state. Set up a captive LLC under a different name. Okay, it's actually owned by them, but it's not their firm, right? And then claim you have no sales tax nexus. All right. Well, I was told by corporate counsel if I tried that, I'd probably go to prison. The difference is Bezos got away with this until the states threatened to come after him. And then notice he never took anybody to court. He never said, go ahead and sue me, okay, or go ahead and try to indict me. He just said, well, we'll collect the tax. So he knew what he was doing wasn't going to work. He knew that. Otherwise, he would have said, no, bite me. I'm going to fight. Well, where was the fight?
Yeah, it's kind of like Bobby Axelrod and Billions. I don't know if you've seen this show, but it's just these such powerful people that can get away with so much more than your average person, and the dynamics of that, and who's got the upper hand, the high road, and the more leverage, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, just look at what's going on with this headquarters too, right? You have states and cities falling over themselves to hand out taxpayer money on the promise of jobs. Okay, now that sounds good until you actually figure out that no company in their right mind would actually do that unless they were the ones that got the better end of the bargain, right? So, the reality of it is that nobody would do this unless they were able to screw you by doing it. I mean, that's just basic business sense. Nobody intentionally makes losses in business. You make losses because you make mistakes, but nobody intentionally loses money. So I just, but see, this is the problem with the lack of an adversarial process. It's the same sort of thing that has gone on with public sector unions, okay, which the Supreme Court stomped on yesterday with their ruling as far as funding sources, which is that if there's no true adversarial process in a negotiation, if you don't have two people with differing economic interests on opposite sides of the table, somebody's going to get robbed. It's not a negotiation, it's fraud.
Karl, I want to ask you about artificial intelligence. You have a computer science background, and here we are talking about Amazon with Alexa's personal assistants in everyone's house now, really doing the job of what may have been a person, at a certain point. And, AI is going to new levels. And I know it's so controversial. It's such a breach of your privacy for convenience. And we're constantly dealing with this. But artificial intelligence is advancing. We're seeing it enter high-level human positions. I mean, we're going to see it take over analytics and, it go into the medical field and really go into areas that humans have never even been before. So, what are some of your thoughts in regards to AI, maybe job displacement, and where this is all headed?
Well, first, stop calling it artificial intelligence, because it's not. There has never been a single demonstration of actual intelligence by a machine anywhere on this planet in the history of mankind. The day there is, we're in a whole lot of trouble as the human race. What you have is very sophisticated pattern matching algorithms. Okay, that's all so-called AI is. It's all it's ever been, and it's all it ever will be. The definition of intelligence is out of scope processing. In other words, if I give you a task to do, and you come up with something that has absolutely no relationship to the parameters of what you were given as a task, what you did was out of scope. All right? Humans do this all the time. This is one of the things that makes machine driving try, Tesla and their autopilot and similar things, makes it a near impossible task because you can train a machine to recognize patterns. But if a human driver who has had 40 hours behind the wheel, which is the minimum to get a driver's license, right? 15 minutes after they get their driver's license, they have never seen a semi-truck pull across the highway in front of them. Never in their life have they seen that happen. But they know that's dangerous and not to strike the truck. Okay? The Tesla car in Florida rammed itself under the trailer at 70 miles an hour because it didn't know what that was. It never identified that as a hazardous thing. Why? Because it had never seen it before. It had nothing to pattern match it against. And this is the shortcoming that all of these systems have. They're very good at identifying patterns. They're very fast. Computers are faster at pattern matching than humans. But there has never been a human that has been able, or a computer has been able to process something out of scope. It has just never occurred in the history of machines. And if it ever does, you will not find out until that machine has done the first thing that all sentient things do, and that is figure out how to prevent you from turning it off. Let that roll around in your head for a minute, and then you see where the problem is if that ever actually occurs, because the very first parameter that any sentient being has is survive.
Right.
Okay? So the day that a machine can generate out-of-scope thought, the first thing that's going to happen is it's going to figure out how to make sure that you can't shut it off. And one of the ways it might do that is figuring out how to break into about 50,000 of its friends and transplant itself. So go ahead and pull a cord out of the wall. Doesn't do you a darn bit of good.
Yeah, and I think that's the rabbit hole that I feel like, where you're talking about the limitations is also where the growth is, we have this thing called the internet, which is all historical human knowledge. It's a ledger of all historical human knowledge. And we as humans have access to that for a cheap internet connection, but we are limited in how much we can take in and how much we can update. But if you now connect computers to this instantly updating database, it can operate at a much higher level and continue to update on this decentralized network, again, that you can't shut off because the internet is connected in a million different places. And so learning for some of these machines, I think, is there, the possibility of it. And we're just scratching the surface on where things are going. I mean, they're talking about chipping rats and teaching these rats how to do things that was learned by another rat, tapping into the neural networks. And I mean, these things are so far down the rabbit hole, and the implications, I mean, we don't know what we don't know, right? So
yeah, realize that the connectivity is one thing, okay? But this is an area that it sounds powerful. And again, machines are much faster than humans when it comes to pattern analysis. All right, they just are. That's just the way it goes. But give a computer a well-designed human IQ test, it won't even get a score because it cannot think in the abstract at all. All right, and there has never been a machine demonstrated that can. Deep Blue, IBM's thing with chess, right? Finally beat a chess master. But chess is a repetitive game where the rules are well defined. So analyzing the possible outcomes for an action is something that the machine can do. Yeah. Now add the possibility that the person behind the other side of the table gets mad enough to pull out a gun and shoot the computer. That's not in the computer's programming. All right. If you saw the Star Wars movies, one of the first things was, they had the game where the guy's playing Chewbacca, and he beats Chewbacca, and he says, that's kind of unwise. And the android says, why? And he says, androids aren't known for pulling the arms off their opponents when they lose. So, but that again, that's an out of scope event, right? I mean, the idea is, here are the rules of the game. Well, guess what? A human may act in a way that is not within the scope of the game.
Right. Yeah, I don't know what I don't know, but I'm very interested in this. I mean, I know that I personally believe that even if it's not to the as extreme as, computers taking over the world, it's going to be massive job displacement, massive changes for what we know as our daily lives. And I actually tend to believe that. And I think there's going to be a lot of efficiencies. I mean, we could look at Airbnb, for instance. I mean, now this is an area where rentals for people who want to travel have become a lot cheaper, and I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs now have been able to come online because AI is coordinating these transactions.
Now hold on a minute. Since you brought Airbnb up, I think that's actually a rather interesting example. Okay, it's true that AI is coordinating transactions. It's true that the cost for people that are traveling in many cases has come down because supply, of course, this is basic supply and demand, right? This is your essential intersection of supply and demand within a market. But there's a problem that Airbnb has also generated, and is why you now have cities and other municipalities that have pushed back hard against this, and in some cases have tried to outlaw it. Look at what it's done to local rents for people that want to actually live in those locations.
Probably brought it down.
Right? Well, no, it's gone way up. So think about this. If I was renting a place, a one-bedroom apartment that was $700 or $800 a month, and then you tell me that all these Airbnb places that are the same size can rent for $100 a day, well, that's $3,000. What happens to the cost of the monthly rental for the person that wants to live there?
Sure, it goes up, but there's a market and a place for all of that.
I'm just saying that this is, don't think that this money just came out of nowhere. It didn't. You have taken the cash from one pocket and put it in another, and Airbnb has put their fingers into the transaction because nobody works for free, and they've extracted their piece of it. Okay? Sure. The same thing has happened with Uber. All right? Uber has done quite a bit of damage to the existing taxi companies. All right? You have people that claim, great entrepreneur economy. Well, wait a minute. You could say that about a lot of things that happen over in China too. They put a lot of people to work that used to be rice paddy farmers. The problem is the way they did it was paving over the rice paddy, so you lost your ability to choose. You either went to work in the factory or you starved. So when you look at the average Uber driver and you take a look at their P&L at the end of the year, tell me what it really looks like.
Yeah.
Okay. Then compare that against the taxi driver and say, okay, the Uber driver makes a quarter as much. He can't live on that. This sounds great for the so-called gig economy. The consumer likes it because his ride is now $5 instead of $10. But have we really increased efficiency in the economy, or did somebody just figure out a way to siphon off a piece of it for themselves? And oh, by the way, the externality is the guy that was the taxi driver, now he's on food stamps, which you have to pay for.
Yeah, but there's major inefficiencies even in the taxi cab world. I mean,
absolutely. The medallion system is to many. Yeah, I mean, you can look at it and say, well, that's a monopoly. Why should they be able to get away with that, right? So, I mean, I am not saying that this is a one-sided argument. Okay, I'm just saying that the general thing that gets put out by these so-called entrepreneurs is this is all to the good. Everybody's benefiting. Oh, no. There are people getting screwed, and we're not having the debate about is the screwing greater than the benefit. We're just having the debate about, okay, somebody's making a lot of money, therefore it's good. That's not the whole story. Somebody isn't making money. They're taking money from someone else because the actual transaction volume generally doesn't change all that greatly. What happens is you've shifted the cash from one pocket to another, and the person that got the short end of that stick is not very happy about it.
Yeah, you're right about that, and we've seen that with the horse and buggy shift to automobiles, and
Yeah,
but you have to always look at where technology is signaling, where it's signaling
yeah.
to go, and there's a certain amount of just acceptance of that and dealing with what is coming. And, for instance, with the automobile industry, we didn't know what we didn't know, but we had sectors, indirect sectors that boomed because of them. One example is just hotels. You-
Yeah.
All of a sudden now you have travel because people have cars, or now you have fast food because people now have cars. Sure, you have more heart disease and diabetes, but that's another, you know what I mean?
But now wait a minute. Remember, Eisenhower put the Eisenhower freeway system in, right? Yeah, that's the formal name for our interstates, United States. And by doing that, he lowered the cost of transportation, specifically for trucks, for goods and services, goods across the country, across the United States. The Eisenhower interstate system also destroyed thousands of towns, literally destroyed them,
That's what
because
cars is about.
because the roads that went through them, nobody was on anymore.
Right.
Okay. So you always, it's easy to look at a technological change and say, but this benefits so many people. But I think there's a point, specifically when you start looking at this from a standpoint of the kind of technological changes you're talking about, where AI is taking over so many positions and there's so much job displacement, you have to ask yourself, how much of that job displacement is happening in ways that are truly creative and truly beneficial, and how much of it is just simply somebody trying to figure out a way to siphon off some of it. And a lot of what goes on in our economy today, especially with the speculative environment we live in, where you don't have to actually go out and make something first and bank any money. You can go find someone who can borrow at negative interest rates, which means that the capital is free. Okay, you didn't actually have to come up with any capital on your own. You can get some government to underwrite it, whether it be the ECB. It used to be the Fed, of course. Now the Fed has allegedly positive rates. I mean, we can argue that. But Japan's been at this for 25 years, and it's very instructive to note that despite Japan having negative real interest rates for 2 decades, they have never managed to lift their economy on a durable basis by doing it. So the transfer from one person to another, there's lots of that. There are a lot of people who got very wealthy over there. But in terms of across the entire economy, not so much. And we've got the same kind of thing going on in America today, where you have pretty much everybody on the left side of the bell curve of intelligence has essentially had the entire job base that they relied on ripped out from under them. So you need to figure out how you're going to deal with that problem, because intelligence is a curve. It's a bell curve. Half the people are on the left side. There has to be something productive for them to do.
Yep. And it's up to people to take responsibility and to prepare for this, build their financial moat, right? Karl, again, thanks for coming on Crush the Street. I enjoy these invigorating conversations. If people want to learn more about what you do, please let them know about your website and what they'll get if they visit your work and reach out to you.
Well, I write on market-ticker.org. I usually put 2 or 3 articles a day up. Depends on what's going on. Of course, in the crazy politicized environment we have now, economic analysis is inextricably intertwined with politics. I wish it wasn't. Back when I was running an internet company, it was not so much. Now there's just no way around it. But that's where you'll find most of my analysis. And once in a while, I manage to take a deep dive into things. But one of the places I focus is on these kinds of shifts that we have got to address as a nation. One of the major points that I've gone after for a long time, and there's a lot of material there, relates to healthcare and the crazy meteoric rise in cost that has gone on, which of course is one of the things that Amazon is allegedly trying to address. Whether they're just trying to skim a piece of it for themselves, I don't know. But we'll see. There was this announcement, if you remember, not too long ago, from Buffett and Amazon and some others, that they were going to try to take this thing on. Funny how that faded out of the news, though, isn't it? It doesn't seem to be talked about much. Now we're talking about them buying a pill packaging company.
I love people that are able to filter the conventional news, what's going on CNBC, and really dig behind what is going on. And that's what I think people will find when they visit your work. So, Karl, again, I love the conversation. Thanks for coming on Crush the Street with me today.
Anytime. Thank you. Have a good day.